Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us. We're just taking a couple minutes here for folks to kind of log in. There is a chat functionality at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to put in questions at any point in time. Oh, I see a few folks. You go ahead and throw in your where you're calling in from, and if you have a LinkedIn that you want to share, feel free to connect with folks. A lot of these founders, I think they're in various different stages of their adventure. Oh, yeah, I see a couple folks coming in here. Feel free to put in your location. Last time we had this session with the same group, we had folks calling in from Italy and all across the US. So that was wonderful to see. So feel free to take a moment. If you need a cup of water or tea, feel free to go grab that. We are recording this session. So if you have to jump up at any point in time, feel free to do that. And then we will send this out to you afterwards. We'll just give folks a couple of minutes here to log in as they're running from their last meeting, and then we'll get started. It's nice to see everybody again.
Great to see you too.
Yeah. We did this a little while ago, and it was nice to see so much content that we had that now we had to do it again. We had to do a V2,
Definitely.
Got
season
it for
two.
round
Now we just
two.
got to run it back. There's so much to cover with marketing.
Absolutely. So,
Never
folks,
ending.
absolutely. So, folks, if you didn't see the first one, we'll drop a link in here. You can watch that at your leisure. But we will try to keep a similar time frame over here so that we're not taking up too much of your time. But if there's more questions you have, feel free to put them in the chat. We're also all four of us are happy to chat with you at any point in time. If there's something we can help with on the Every side or the Agent website, feel free to let us know. All right, crew. It looks like we have a good amount of folks on, so I think we should jump in, shall we?
Sounds
Shall we,
good.
crew? Okay. I'm gonna do this real quick. Here we go. Make this nice. Wonderful. Oop, 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 oop. Always fun to play with technology. For all of the founders, you guys know about live demos. Let's see. Wonderful. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. So this is the Founder's Guide to Go to Market, and this is episode 2. So like I mentioned, we actually did this before, and we had so much content and so much fun that we decided to do it again. So if you haven't joined us for the first session, this is your first time kind of tuning in to this group, we'll kind of get you caught up, and then we'll jump into it. So my name's Lyndi Thompson. I'm the head of marketing here at Every, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Harsha to introduce himself as well as the rest of the AgentWeb team.
So, hi guys, I'm Harsha, CEO and co-founder of AgentWeb.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Matthew, co-founder and CMO of AgentWeb.
Hi everyone, I'm Fangfang, in charge of product, CPO of AgentWeb.
Amazing. Well, crew, we had so much fun last time, all four of us chatting about all kinds of things. So we're going to get into it here in just a moment. But real quick, we're just going to give you some context. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe Matthew or Sher or Fang Fang, kind of jump in? What's been going on over in the agent website? What have you guys been building? Anything different from last time that the folks should be aware of?
Totally, yeah. So, like I said last time, AgentWeb is building Emma, which is your AI go-to-market teammate. One of the things that we're adding to Emma too is actually like bleeding more into even sales and customer support as well. But basically, what we're doing with Emma is we are giving Emma access to a company's data. From there, Emma is able to come up with strategies about what the company should do for go-to-market, and then execute on those strategies across things like paid acquisition, so paid ads, content, and also on outreach.
Hmm.
Basically you can imagine that we designed for growing startups a distribution engine, right? Not just, a point solution where you simply could create a pitch of ads or some founder thought leadership articles, but think of it as, how do you go to market holistically online, right? Like say in the next quarter. And there were potentially, a few happy paths that you can choose, whether it's via the founder warm outbound or the pay ads led, kind of inbound acquisition. Eventually, you wanted to kind of like connect to like our CRM where you can just, further engage, right after that particular campaign and such that you move along down the funnel, right? So that this is the holistic GTM distribution system that we built.
Mhm.
Amazing. Thank you so much for kind of catching us up. Um, I think it's really interesting about everything you're doing, and I think everyone on this call should probably take a closer look at it. With AI being such a hot topic, it's wonderful to have something with structure and the guidance, and especially with all the onboarding support you all have. Real
Mhm.
quick before we get into it, I know we mentioned it before. Can you tell us a little bit of difference between what you guys are offering versus like a marketing agency or hiring like a paid programs contractor?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, if you look at an agency, and I've worked with these in the past before, typically they're going to, I mean, they'll do like one of two things, right? Like one is they would either, they could own a channel completely, right? So they're like going to be your paid ads
Mm,
channel agency, or they're going to be a agency that's going to only do your content writing, or they're going to do your outreach for you, right? In those cases, I would say like oftentimes a founder should just do it themselves because it's like you're gonna know like what good looks like and then like what are the types of things that you're able to offload to other folks, right? So I would certainly say like starting off with doing it yourself makes a lot of sense. And then there's also agencies that are like highly specialized, like they're gonna make you like really sick, like
mm,
brand videos or something like that, like really tailored to your specific company. And we work with those types of agencies like as partners. And they offer a lot of like added value, especially when you can use a service like AgentWeb to actually like make those really high quality assets into something that's actually actionable.
absolutely. No, that's
Yeah,
great.
just to hop on that real quick, like a major difference would be like you pay an agency, right? Typically a retainer, right? That you got to like hop on and kind of clear as you kind of go to market. But then if that ever doesn't go well, like if that engagement just doesn't go to plan, like a lot of times we see just that not they retain kind of the knowledge, right? They retain kind of the
Mm,
know-how that then founders are kind of left to like kind of left picking up the pieces of how to go to market. So our goal at AgentWeb was actually to have that be retained in-house. So if you were to do different go-to-market motions, then if one
mm,
were to go well or not go well, then you retain that learning and you're basically just not dependent on like a third-party group to
absolutely.
teach you
Yeah, you
those things.
don't need that brain drain of all of everything you've worked
Yeah.
on, the strategy, the
Starting
tactics, the
from
campaigns. It's very,
it's a
it's very
lot to
difficult.
ingest and store and then to not have that context. So yeah, it's definitely something that, our mission is just to help companies retain that and then be able to
Amazing.
act on that in the future.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, and one point to add is that this like agent-led approach, allows the agent to also evolve and self-learn as the customers
Oh,
and us, learn about, the first iteration of the campaign performance, how to embed that learning into the future round of, content creation. And also, in terms of the cost, right? It's just
Mm.
a fraction of
oh,
the normal, agency will retain, due to the highly automation part of things.
amazing. I think that's good to mention the cost because I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute
Mhm.
here. But real quick, we'll just kind of give everyone some context about what Every's up to. So, Every has been around for a bit, mostly focused on early stage startups, but our startups are growing. And what we typically do is we start with them in the corporation stage, but not always. And so, we offer a free Delaware C Corp with folks. We also handle banking, the cards, your expense management, your HR suite, and all kinds of other things. So if you have questions on that or you need some support so you can focus on building your product, focus on things like go to market, which will become a big piece as you distribute your product, we're happy to help. But more on that another time, but let's jump into some of these questions because I know we're going to try to go over time. Sorry, everyone. We have so much to talk about. So it's been a minute since we all came back together, and I just kind of want to like anchor us in what we chatted about a little bit last time. So we talked about kind of the first approach. I told you all like, hey, imagine I'm a founder across from you at a coffee shop, and you're kind of giving me some advice. We kind of went through all of that, which is great.
Mhm.
I think where we want to go a little bit deeper on is in a couple of different things. So feel free, all three, to chime in, and I'll probably ping you a little bit. Also, just a quick reminder for everybody on the line, feel free to put questions in the Q&A or in chat, and we'll answer them as we go, or we'll follow up with you afterwards if we don't have enough time. So, Harsha, I'll kind of start with you. So, we've talked about like some of the things that a founder might get wrong when they're going to go to market. But let's kind of dive out. And let's say I'm not that person we talked to in our last chat where I said, "Hey, this is my first time I'm launching." But now I have like 3 employees. Now we have a little bit of traction. Maybe I did a friends and family round. Maybe I have a little seed funding. What switches there that you might want to give advice for of what founders might trip over or maybe a lesson learned that we can help them avoid.
Yeah, totally. So I think, once you get some capital behind you, right, whether that's through like a friends and family round or you just got funded, I think what needs to switch is maybe that bootstrap mentality of like, hey, we need to
Mm,
basically save every dollar that we possibly can on go to market because, like we didn't have that capital
sure.
before, so like we don't want to like overspend because, we increased our burn rate, etc., right? Because again, like my big philosophy that and reason why we're even really building Agent Web is like I think one of the last things that's going to go to zero in terms of like line items for a business is going to be
Mm,
GTM, right? Because it's
mm,
like as more products get shipped out, it's even harder to stand out, even if you have an amazing product, right? There's a lot of
yeah,
folks who are building like kind of not as great products. I'm not going to name any, but like they're very like easily visible, let's say, right? So it's like
sure.
it's not always like the best product's going to win, especially in these days. So I think understanding that you're going to have to spend some money, like getting to grips with that is like the first important thing. And then from there, it's really making decisions on like where do you want to spend that money, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like you could spend it on really low leverage things, like for example, if you wanted to set up a bunch of email infrastructure and do like cold
Mm,
outbound, like yeah, like that might get you some leads for sure. And like there are companies that are going to say that that's an amazing way to do it. You
sure.
could do like LinkedIn outreach. You could like go after your own warm connections. You could set up events. I mean, there's like all kinds of
Hmm.
channels that you could start to spend money on. And we'll definitely be talking about that in this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Any else want to chime in on the funded founder adventures? We're getting some traction. We've got a couple employees. Maybe we have a little bit of recurring revenue. What are some
Mm.
of the things that might trip them up that they should learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely hard to delegate. You get your first couple employees. I think processes are setting the foundation. I think especially as more team members join, right, and then funding comes in, like deploying that capital and then making sure that the person or persons in charge of those processes start to be well documented. I think a startup kind of has a key person risk, right? Like
Mm,
you're the founder, you have it all up here, but then how do you like as your team grows, how does that be inhabited and also documented publicly so your team starts to become more of a snowball of momentum that's not dependent. So it's like I think it's really easy from a founder to like you're the visionary behind your company, and then it's like as you
yes.
grow, it's like how does that trickle down and also be spread outward and as you impact other customers or
Yes.
customers.
I know you mentioned last time in our session about having like all of your brand kit in one spot and all this
Yeah.
messaging and tone. And that is something I've seen every startup kind of like really struggle to transition into
Yeah. It's
is
like
saying
hard to
like,
explain.
yes, yes, it's like that knowledge transfer.
Yeah.
There was a really great podcast a long time ago I listened to about the CEO of Trek Bikes and
Mm.
how he refused to take on that leadership role until he went around and like found out how customers buy and the support that they needed and
Yeah.
whatever that was, so that he could then pass that knowledge down, those values down to the rest of his staff. So
Mhm.
that's a big key one. Okay, let's jump into this next one. And Fang Fang, I'm kind of looking at you first. So when we talked last time, we talked about like the first things when we're setting up a go to market motion that may be um, applicable for all these founders who are listening. But let's kind of dive in a little bit more. Let's say they're starting to get traction. They've got like the basics in place. Can you dive in a little bit more of like what that next, like maybe it's the V1.5 version of go to market like infrastructure might look like?
Yeah, yeah. We have, worked with companies at this stage, and I would actually like to point to, really tactical things that, like, say, founders might wanted to just, watch out for. One is that I realize, a lot of the companies are trying to just, expose themselves, in public really early on. Like, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
when their first version of the product is ready, they jump on to launch in Product Hub, and then expect their products to be ranked first, right? Maybe daily ranking and monthly ranking. Actually, that probably might not be the best way to do it, because like the product hunt is essentially also a form of giving a lot of public visibility, and in order to drive
Mm-hmm.
that visibility, you need a doing, a lot of just, pushing behind the scenes. And
Mm.
a more reasonable strategy that I would see is like the launch in the sub communities, right? In the
Mm,
first, in order to get, fast iterations on feedback, before you launch in a more visible, public state. Of course, can keep just, doing major updates and do the relaunching, but at
sure.
least, don't confuse just visibility with traction and even,
Mm,
monetization.
Mm.
Then the
that
second,
happens a lot. Look at all these
yeah.
impressions. Look at all
Yeah.
these
Exactly. But I,
clicks.
I call that firework, right? Like say, oh, you set a
Yes.
firework and then prong, it probably disappears. Yeah. And then the second tactical thing, a lot of founders, when they are reaching out to their potential, customers that get linking requests like this, where, oh, would you like to have a conversation? Would like to try
Sure.
a product? And I click that person's LinkedIn profile. Is it really the founder, or am I looking into someone completely different? So what turns
Yeah.
out is that they forget to update their founder
Uh,
profile,
yes.
so that it reads like a job seeker from 2019, that they still stay in their previous career. So
Yes.
LinkedIn is actually your landing page, right? Treat that as
Mm,
second
Mhm.
product site. And yeah, and avoid just making it being the leak, right? Like how
Mhm.
attracting.
hmm It's interesting how much of the brand early on is the founder and how
Oh,
much people go and
100%.
snoop
Yeah,
the founder's information and their past blog posts and their social media, all that kind of
100%.
stuff as well. Anyone else want to chime in on like that kind of like starting to get traction piece? Maybe Harsha, maybe yes, it's you had this sort of experience being a founder. What are
Totally.
some of the 1.5 go-to-market infrastructure pieces that you would want folks to kind of consider or watch out for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, getting attribution early is like going to be pretty important, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you kind of discern different channels, right? I think the
Mm.
the trap that I've fallen into, I mean, we're working through this at AgentWeb too, but like obviously Emma's helping us out, but it's like making sure that all the data across the chain is like really easily tracked because then you're
hmm
able to see like objectively, like, is this
Yeah.
channel actually working, right? For
Yes.
example, in the previous business, I found that like cold calling worked actually quite well. Like if I was on the phone calling people, I would see a great, conversion rate just from those calls. Like I'd have to deal with some, I guess like people who are upset that I called them, sure, but like it could work, right? Especially the type of business that you're
Mm,
working on. But for other businesses, it might not work, right? So it's like hard to give like a one size fits all, like here's the exact channels you've got to be doing.
yeah.
But I think like if you have that
Mm,
attribution, like you can figure out like, okay, if I have all this parked in my CRM, right? If it's in like a HubSpot or something, and I can see that, okay, if I go from, email close rate, people are like, I guess the open rate on email to like the reply rate to they're booking a demo and then they're actually converting, right?
yeah.
Across that chain, I think is going to be super important. And then if you do that across your different channels, again, like that gives you all the data you need to sort of make those decisions. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just to harp on that just for a second, like
Yeah.
first party data management gets only harder as you scale. So
yeah.
it's like setting up a good foundation to make sure that, as Harsh just said, like make sure it's trackable, right? So if someone's coming in from a LinkedIn or Google or Facebook or an in-person event, it's like making sure that that's living with the contact data. And that
Mm,
builds a cascading effect later. Because once you have 1,000 or 10,000 contacts, it's a lot harder to work backwards from data cleanup. And there's a whole job of mop up
yes.
people that, I mean, Lyndi, I think you're hiring someone for this, right?
We did. This is week 2 for them. Yeah.
Which is, so it only gets, data management gets harder. So as a startup, it's like
Mhm.
you get the luxury of setting a good foundation early. And it's like, so if you put the
Absolutely.
practice in now, it'll get better, like over time, is what I would.
Absolutely. Well, while you have the mic there, Matthew, I'm gonna throw
Yeah,
another question at you.
sure.
So we started to think about the channels, and
Yep.
I think this is a tough one where for most of the folks probably on the call, you're probably B2B, and there's
Yep.
probably a few that
Yep.
are
Yeah.
B2C.
Yeah.
But if you were to go ask a random friend on the street, they'd be like, go to TikTok, go to this. Tell me
Yeah.
your advice
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes to choosing the channels.
That's a great, I mean, I get this all the time and it's a really, because there's a lot of noise around it. And I think
Yeah.
TikTok, these are channels I would like to say that own the attention economy. So
Mm,
TikTok's like good for virality, it's good for engagement, but then I think it's a flash in the pan because you put out one, you get to be really good at creating the type of video that would be viral on like a TikTok. And if you are, more power to you, leverage that skill. But I would say TikTok and certain other channels are good for attention. And then there's really ones that are built for conversion and actual discourse. So like LinkedIn's going to be a very authentic community where thought leadership and actually sharing like case studies and also like learnings is going to be well received.
hmm
And then I would say Facebook and so Instagram and Meta, obviously, those channels are people are expecting to consume content that they're gonna either shop for or book a demo. They're accustomed to that behavior. Their channels are built for that. So I would say
Right.
like there's the attention ones, like know how to use them to get virality, but then like don't expect
Yes.
those to actually help you convert. Like make sure you're kind of layering in those other like LinkedIn and Meta to make sure that there's like the actual down funnel conversion. Um, I
Absolutely.
think just I see a lot of people just chase a lot of different channels and then they're kind of stuck. Why? Like, oh, why am I not getting right? Like, why am I not getting
Yes.
conversion here or invest into that? And
Right.
I would say pick two or three to do really, really well, and then think about expanding after you kind of have that foundation.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. And I think, feel free folks to put in the chat what kind of businesses you're working on or your websites. Maybe that'll give some other feedback you can get from the group who's attending. At least in my experience, I've been consulting with nonprofits,
Yeah.
SMBs, of course, now founders. It's so different, right? If you really
Mhm.
understand where your audience is, it might be somewhere totally different.
It could be Reddit,
Um,
right?
it could
It
be
could,
Reddit. It could
yeah.
be a private forum that someone's hosting through Vanilla. It could be they're in a Facebook group, depending on the product that you have. It could be that they're only on threads, right? Like there's so many different
Yeah.
channels I think we have to think about. So I would just give permission for folks to like not feel bad to turn it off. And I think we talked about that a
Mhm.
little bit in her last
Yeah.
chat. But I think sometimes folks feel bad because of all the effort and energy and money they've invested to turn it off if it's not working.
Yeah,
Okay,
just kill switch it.
right? And I think we can kind of like dig into this a little bit more. Harsha, like your experience too as a founder, and you've been around so many different founders. When they start to share, or maybe even when you're sharing your experiences, or even what you see with Emma, when it comes to true acquisition, what are some of the things that you've heard, you've seen work well or not well? And then where do you kind of like advise your own team or Emma, or if you're talking to a customer on where they should start?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, even piggybacking off of that channel idea, right? I think one thing I'll kind of dispel kind of the first sort of notion I've seen from founders that like they really try to optimize for like just volume of impressions
Yeah.
and volume of clicks.
Yep.
I think like
Mhm.
if you are in the right channel, you're like probably not gonna have high volume. But
Yeah.
like if you're getting like strong conversion, like if you're in a room with your exact ICP and like
Yes.
everybody that you're talking to is literally like, in our case, like, let's say marketers, right? And all of those folks would like buy Emma or like buy a product like like Emma, for example, and we're pitching them that. We might not get like millions of impressions, but like if we even get a few
Yes.
impressions with them, and then that turns into like conversations, and then that turns into customers, it's amazing, right? And so
Yes.
like it's not all about like volume of impressions, it's also about
Yeah.
like making sure you're actually reaching out to the right people. And like this is gonna, I mean, in terms of like acquisition, like if you at a more advanced company, there's obviously like the marketing qualified lead, which are folks that the marketers put on the table. There's
Sure,
the
sure.
sales qualified lead, which is the folks that the sales, like, sales is saying, okay, this is great, I could convert them. And that's always a big fight. I mean, between those two folks, right?
Hopefully
Um,
it's just a thumb war, not actually
yeah,
more than
right.
that, but
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. And then like from there, it's like they turn into customers right down the funnel. So it's
Sure,
like,
sure.
that whole like, tug of war happens because it's like, are we reaching out to the right people? And I think,
Yes.
like reaching out to that in terms of channels is super important, right? And so I would definitely say like, first piece of advice on acquisition, certainly focusing on those channels because they become like your bread and butter, right? Like in the case,
Absolutely.
Fangfang brought up product hunt, like it might be the best place for you to like actually
Yeah.
continuously launch because your exact ICP is there. But if you're like selling into like other industries where they're maybe not checking product hunt and but your founder friends are all doing it, you might think that you have
Absolutely.
to, but maybe you
Yeah.
don't, right? Maybe your
Yeah.
best place to go is like trade shows. Like that might be where your ICP is, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
this all goes back to audience. And I guess
Yeah.
Fang, I'd love to have your kind of opinion on your advice as a product leader. Like, how do you start to think about the product as it was developed,
Mm.
for a particular audience and where those people might be? I'm curious if someone was sitting, let's say I'm sitting across from you at a coffee shop and I'm kind of getting some traction, kind of like what we're going on before. But as a product perspective, what's kind of your thoughts there?
Yeah, yeah. I think, the answer will really depends on the stage or where you are, right? Like say, if you are just starting, like say exploring, right? Like say how your product is going to solve, different pain points of
Hmm.
a customer, then going into just, some authentic conversations, right? Like with early users and customers
Absolutely.
always going to be beneficial and depends where what type of like say product you are building the key is really not start with the channel but start really understanding
Yeah.
your ideal customer profile, right? And then map back to where are they being active. If they
Yeah.
are not active, we work with health tech companies that are selling to hospital in terms of like say
Yeah.
right? For those people, probably they are not that active on any type of social platforms, right? Because they're really busy cardiologists, or like doctors, like surgeons.
Yes.
Maybe the best channel to really learn their trust and get the early feedback is via conferences where
Yes.
they
Mm.
attended, right? So our customer actually have like the most success in getting traction and feedback there. Versus if you are building, for instance, a solution for developers, right? Like then
Yeah.
like any sort of like say developing to dev conferences, right? Like or even like Reddit subreddit groups.
Reddit's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Essentially, will be the way to collect their feedback, and then once your product is established already, right? Like say your early customer wins, then the next stage for you to think about will be the channels where you can just further scale down, right?
Hmm.
So we work a lot with like say the B2B companies that are selling solutions with audiences that are active on LinkedIn. And you're seeing
Hmm.
just, doing the
Hmm.
sales like founder-led, outbound in a structured manner, right? Not
Yeah.
just one-off,
Yeah.
but sending just, dedicated like message sequence, right? And get them connected and then scheduling calls and demos to be sort of like really effective and in partnership, right? Like co-marketing or speaking in like relevant events where you can further reach to this larger set of audiences will
Yeah.
be also promising, given that like say online there is only going to be even more and more abundance in content. Well, whereas
Mm.
the in-person connection is really going to foster trust,
Oh,
right?
for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, and then probably a few months down the road, then you are maybe already at this like fast-growing stage where we already have this.
That's the goal.
Yeah, yeah, that's every startup is trying to move towards.
Hmm.
And then your question will be, okay, because events are sparse, right? Like LinkedIn, probably you are seeing just the
Hmm.
marginal benefit of outreach declining. Then maybe then consider like say even activating paid channels more, right? Like, double down
Mm.
on like LinkedIn pay ads or Meta pay ads.
Yeah.
Again, have that sell engine repeats itself.
Mm. Mm.
Thank you for that. I think this is a perfect segue. So, Matthew, we're about to come into summer. And
Yeah.
I think for most people, Q3 is rough,
It's good. Yep.
right?
It's
What's
it's really
your, I'm t
everyone's traveling. It's like how do you
I
even like
know there's
go to
kids out
market?
of school, there's sun sickness, right?
Yeah.
What is one, like maybe one or two quick wins you feel like the folks on the call could probably leverage or test to help with acquisition into the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think judging intent's always really like crucial. And I think about Q3 as is kind of the preamble to Q4.
Yes.
And I would say prepare for August through September conversations, and don't be discouraged when there's like a drop off, maybe of like your typical 2 week sales cycle might actually extend to like 4 weeks.
Mm,
But be prepared for just a ROI tracking through maybe set a goal of like October 15th actually.
mm,
And so you might be cutting off your campaigns a little prematurely when you actually might be just really close to the other side of that where they actually might come through and, oh, I actually want to have a conversation like July 15th. And you're like, well,
mm.
so it's okay to like still invest into customer acquisition now, I would say through June, and then just really hammer those up until October because you just don't know when someone's going to actually like devote that time. And I
Absolutely.
would say just don't be persistent and don't give up, but treat quarter 3 as a little more nuanced and a little more grace period. And but that doesn't mean there's not ROI on the other side of that, like through October. So it all starts at, Memorial Day, Labor Day commences, and then it's like, oh my gosh, you just have like a flood back historically of conversations because they need to get their act together for the holidays. So
Like, oh, that to-do list was still on my
I
desk.
have like this last end of year push I got to get through. And so
Yeah.
like just knowing that where you are kind of in between, it's really important to know that.
I
Yeah.
think that that's great advice. But something I would always say is like nurture. This is a great
Yeah.
time to go back to folks who maybe
Yeah.
didn't work out for timing reasons, or
Yeah.
maybe their budget was adjusted, or maybe you can do a little
Absolutely.
bit of extra to like help them along in their season of fun. So they
Mhm.
think about you when they come back. And there's a bunch of emails from the competitor, but somehow
Yeah.
you gave them a beach blanket and a new cooler or something. So they're gonna
Yeah.
think of you.
Heck yeah.
So, one more question, and I think we're going to switch over to Q&A.
Mm.
Fang, can you tell me a little bit about how teams can like better track? And I think we talked about a little bit of metrics and UTMs, but what's actually working versus the spend they're investing?
Mm.
Yeah, sure. So I would see the questions, right, like in defining what to track and where to track, like how, where and
Yes.
how, right? Yeah, what to track has needs to tie to whatever, marketing goals that are
Mm,
for a specific channel and also a specific campaign, right? Because you could launch brand awareness campaigns or like conversion based campaigns on a paid channel, but then the metrics you're tracking could be totally different. So first needs to just crystallize the what success looks like, right? And then
yeah.
Mm.
if it's top of funnel like as SEO, then basically mostly tying to how is traffic that is leading to your site. Makes more sense than tracking conversions directly. For campaigns that like driving promotions, then obviously sales is the goal. And book
Yeah.
knows the number of like qualified leads or demo book should be your goal. And then after that, then the next question is how to, right? So we have
Yeah.
like this UTM parameters that normally I think platforms like Meta, LinkedIn provided them when you launch campaigns, right? Like
Yeah.
that it's very important to do this invest right into a little bit of solution engineering work of embedded to the right place,
Yeah.
right, on into your website, such that it could be effectively tying whoever sees the campaign and the ad to like say what actions they are doing. Of course, in reality, measurement is pretty much broken. So anyone like say
Yes.
launch like a meta campaign before probably experiences puzzling moments when you look at the number of leads. You say, well, you
Yay. Oh,
almost then you get
Yeah.
100 leads, and then you open your HubSpot and say, why am I only seeing 5 demos? Well, like, where are the
right.
what other leakage coming from? So we of course do a lot of like debugging with the customers who saw this. We investigate into third party solution. I would say the most reliable solutions is to what Matt shared earlier, right? Like gather as much first party signals as possible, right?
Absolutely.
And that's and that's the reason why we just enable Emma to build custom landing page, right? That ties very specifically to campaign effectively. such that
Mm,
at least, we are able to effectively capture every single step of a solution and prevent the leakage from happening.
Yeah.
Whether it's
absolutely.
yeah, people saw like say some information and not convinced and left, or they just
Yeah.
they forget to
Eh,
click the submit button. It's tracked very seamlessly if you have the
yeah.
party data.
They have an ad blocker on. Now Calendly doesn't work. Who knows what happened.
Yeah.
One question that just came in, and I think it's a good one. So we talked about all these different channels, a lot of like traditional marketing channels, but one I would love us to explore for a minute is AI. And so someone mentioned, I've been hearing I need to optimize for LLMs and AI, but what do you recommend for companies that want to like try to optimize their AI search? And I think we had kind of dabbled on the AEO sort of idea last time, but I would love to hear whoever wants to chime in on this one, what the recommendation might be.
Yeah.
Um, I can get started.
Okay.
Harsha and Matt, feel free to.
Yep.
Popcorn
The
around.
popcorn.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, sure. So AEO is actually build upon a good SEO, even though that they are not exactly the same. The reason being an answer engine optimization, right? By definition, is how the large language models like answer specific user questions regard that could be relating to a product, right? Then basically prompt the user to take certain action upon it. It's still learning largely from the web content.
Yeah.
And we all know that actually AI loves coding contents written by other AIs.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
like so yeah,
Inception sort of
they're
feel.
very structured. They're basically framed in a way that AI really is eager to understand. So good SEO is a foundation of good AEO. Like just take Gemini as an example. It loves to just code contents from YouTube as well as
Hmm.
highly trusted sort of like say website sources, right? So a good SEO is contribute to the good foundation
Oh,
of
absolutely.
yeah. But then there are also nuances, right? Like because the good SEO contents sort of like traditionally, I think one thing that we observe is the backlink, right? Used to be, oh,
Oh, sure. All
that
kinds of
that
shady
is
things
Yeah.
happen
really,
there.
yeah, exactly. That's credibility and all that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
heard recently from our trusted SEO partners is that the power of the backlink, start becomes a little bit unclear, right? Like
sure.
yeah, in the era of AEO, simply because the AI summarizes what it's
Yes.
saying, based on scraping the web, right? So in that there's a lot more to consider on top of just a couple of backlinks.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of people have what's nerd out for a second, like unstructured data, right? So meaning like a
Yes,
PDF or a doc or stuff that like AI, even images, like image
for sure.
files, AI doesn't know how to interpret. And so I think a big thing is actually, and we've seen this with even so to avoid AI slop or AI understandability about your brand, you have to feed it how it would interpret. So reverse engineering is a term we use a lot at AgentWeb internally, but essentially what that would mean is like take an image or a PDF and ask AI to like explain it back to you. And if it can do that
Yeah,
clearly, then it can understand your branding or your positioning or product or service. If it can't do that, and it most likely will hallucinate a little bit, it's just building that markdown file. We
yeah,
markdown or JSON file, both are very just ask like Claude or ChatGPT to create a markdown file that would describe your product and just make sure it's high fidelity, high accuracy.
yeah,
And I think once you do that enough, it's you can create those public facing artifacts, a blog or everywhere else where your
absolutely.
brand would live. And I think that just adds to the SEO foundation
Hmm.
where that
Hmm.
starts to rise to the top with it, like a typical AEO or GEO. Um, but
Wait,
that link's broken of like your
oh,
brand.
for sure.
So talk like an enterprise B2B or like a company that's even been around for a while. They're just not interpreted by AI as easily now. Um,
No, that's very helpful. There's a few more questions I think we'll have to get to at the end because we've been chatting for a while. But
yeah,
maybe I'll just leave it at this. Okay, for those who are getting us a little traction, they're a little further along, what do you want them to walk away with
Mm.
from this conversation? All three of you. Harsha, you want to start
Sure,
as our
yeah. So
founder?
yeah, sure. So I would say that, if you're further along, you're getting, I guess you're at that, like, let's call it scale up stage, right? Of
Yeah.
you've just kind of gotten your first 10 set of customers that like love your product and you're trying to, move forward. I mean, obviously like the first thing is like to figure out like why they love you, right? So like just go through interviews with them, try to like tease out phrases that they say, use that in your marketing, right? Because like that's gonna like help you find other people that would maybe fit that.
Mm.
Um, Also, like understanding like the problem that you were like inherently solving for them, I think is going to be super important, right? Because
Sure.
that can kind of get lost like as you've solved it. So like if you can get them to
Yes.
sort of think back about like actually like what is the thing that you were helping them
Yep.
solve, then you can basically like your job is to find people like them that are basically just like at an earlier stage, right?
Mm,
Almost like time traveling back, right? To just basically those folks in the past, you
Yep.
show them their future state with all these case studies that you're able to like develop with the folks that you've been working with. And that will like at least, as a foundational point, help you basically close your next set of like 100 customers, right? Because again,
Mhm.
like the key is like,
absolutely.
yeah, making sure that you've got the case studies, you've got the testimonials, like you seem, very legit. Like that's really going to help you
Yeah.
in that scale up stage. Because like at the very early stage, just like you like hand recruit these folks, right? So it's just a different.
Yes.
Mhm. Fang, you want popcorn it? On? Yep.
Yeah, I would build on top of Harsha, right? Like learn how to delegate effectively, right? Like
Mm,
rely on distribution system. You should have invested enough to establish a very solid sales process, and that ties well to your product, right? And then have that figured out, and then rely on a system, right? Whether it could be your team, right, who is running it, it could be your AI agent or your trusted partners to continue doing that.
mm,
Well, you free up your mental bandwidth in just more so like say this like strategic initiatives, and exploring new channels and building partnership and things.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, I would just love brands to know like you can encodify, build a foundation of your first party data, take control of that, take control of your brand narrative. Your story
mhm,
is why people are, investing into you or wanting to use your product or service. Like make sure that that is put to the max of visibility.
mhm,
And so the AEO foundation we talked about. That's also really the foundation of the brand guidelines being stored, and your processes and also customer wins and learnings, all is what's going to attract further customers. So that's all
mhm.
that just leverage as much as you can into paid campaigns. Like don't just sell, but really attract and give value along multiple touch points because as we all
Absolutely.
mean, the buyer journey is not linear. It's very nuanced that they might go check out your LinkedIn, as you said, like
Yes.
wrap up like founder
Yeah.
page. They may go to your website. So just making sure all the touch points are consistent, and reflect back your journey and what you're solving. I mean, you're the founder, you're passionate about solving a problem. So it's just like, where does that, how does that be perceived over the different touch points of social media? And if that can stand out across multiple channels, I think you're going to attract more customers and just have better wins. So yeah, that's what I would say is just make sure it's centralized and be able to be distributed.
Amazing. Well, this was wonderful. I think we're going to have to do more sessions, maybe about budgeting and thinking about that, what Emma can actually do. Maybe we'll do some more sessions in the future about specifics around creative, because I know there's a couple of questions around that. But I want to just thank you all for the time again, for all of your energy, your thoughtfulness, bringing all your examples, your experience. And I know everyone else appreciate it. But with everyone's questions in there, just to let you know, we will follow up with you individually. You'll get a follow-up note from both Every and AgentWeb, and you'll get the recording. And we're here to help. If you just need to chat about things, your marketing strategy, we could probably find some time to figure it out.
Mm.
Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lindy.
Yeah.
Bye.